this president has just 3 years remaining, 3.5 years remaining, practically speaking, right? So every month, every week, every day that he's constrained from reining in and protecting the republic is a day that can never be gotten back again. And the courts know that, who are doing this. The leftists know that, who are doing this. They're trying to gum up the works. First up, though, is the big debate about the role of the judiciary in the fights about what President Trump is able to do or should be able to do under his constitutional authority. And what the left has done is they've gone to court after court in well over 150 cases, seeking almost emergency-style relief to stop Trump from engaging in government reform, firing people, protecting the military from transgender extremism, engaging in analysis of data for evidence of waste, fraud, and abuse, protecting the sovereignty and national security of the United States by expelling aliens who are here in violation of law, all of which has been challenged successfully to a large extent by the radical left, which is fine. You know, the left is going to go to court and they're going to do what they can. That's an opportunity or an option that they have. The question is, should the courts buy into it? And too many courts have bought into this unprecedented relief that they've been seeking that has effectively turned the judges into co-presidents of the United States, something that's contrary, in my view, to the rule of law and to the U.S. Constitution as delineated related to the separation of powers. The judicial branch is supposed to be judicial, and they're not supposed to be exercising legislative or executive powers. And so we've had a case in Maryland where a judge effectively took over the Social Security Administration. I think I had a tweet about it. Let's go to that tweet. Obama judge effectively, again, takes over Social Security Administration at the behest of Democratic donor unions, and that's what these public employee unions typically are. She rules that President Trump's administration can't access data to try to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse. So the acting head of the Social Security Administration looked at this over-the-top ruling and concluded that the ruling is written so broadly that the Social Security Administration may have to be shut down completely. And because when you tell a president and people that she terms to be Doge that they can't access information necessary to do their jobs, and you define it in such a way that everyone in the Social Security Administration is covered, then that's a problem. Another problem is you had Judge Anna Reyes, who is a new Biden appointee, relatively, I guess she's been on the bench 2 years now, here in Washington, D.C., who essentially outlawed President Trump's efforts to restrict the service of certain transgendered individuals in the United States military. Essentially, he is re-implementing a rule he had successfully implemented from his first term. And Judge Reyes' decision effectively makes her commander-in-chief on this matter and tells the president he can't exercise the judgment, really, that he alone has as commander-in-chief as to who's suitable for military service. And when you look at her opinion, and maybe we can find it and post it, it's full of unhinged political rhetoric. You know, some of these opinions are pretty awful, and some of them are more straightforward, where they at least try to be sane, however insane the result is. In this case, the decision is just full of political anti-Trump rhetoric using talking points from the transgender extremist movement, just echoed straight by a federal judge. Really inappropriate. And then, of course, you had another Maryland judge, I think it was a Maryland judge, who ruled, and there are a few judges who kind of ruled this way, that President Trump essentially had to rehire tens of thousands of probationary employees that he let go. again, an extraordinary intervention in the president's right to hire and fire government employees. There's nothing in terms of an emergency basis that justified this court ruling. And in my view, you know whose fault it is? It's Chief Justice Roberts, and to a certain extent, Amy Coney Barrett. It's all Chief Justice Roberts' fault. And because he had an opportunity a few weeks ago to rein in a particular court ruling that required the president to broadly spend $2 billion within minutes, effectively speaking, as a result of a court saying, well, you can't control the money here, you have to spend it, you can't even hold it for more than a few days before you have to spend it, because it's disputed whether you're obligated to spend it, so we're just going to cut to the chase and make you spend it on foreign nationals in support of the UN and Lord knows what else. And Chief Justice Roberts could have just said, that's an abuse of power. We've got to stop that from happening, and it would have sent a signal to the other judges. But instead, he and Justice Coney Barrett voted with the three liberals on the Supreme Court over the objections of their four colleagues, more conservative colleagues, at least in this issue. And now it's Katie bar the door from our judiciary. And if I were in the House, this is what I would do. I would initiate hearings about the impeachment power of the House as it relates to federal judges. Go through the issues that I explore in my op-ed, where I go through the framers saw impeachment as a key tool to rein in an out-of-control judiciary. And if the Congress thinks the judiciary is out of control and that the Supreme Court, as evidenced by Chief Justice Roberts' prior decisions and his statement here, is not going to provide sufficient protection for our republic, then impeachment is possible and may be necessary. Now, of course, the challenge is impeachment means that the process of impeachment has two parts. So in the House, a judge becomes impeached upon a majority vote for an article, right? So you're impeached for offense X. It's kind of like an indictment. And then the trial, if there is to be a trial, because I think the Senate doesn't even have to commit to a trial, would occur in the Senate. And in order for someone to be convicted under impeachment, according to the Constitution, I think it's a 67 vote, it has to be 67 votes. I think it's 3/5. So that's going to be a tough haul in a Senate that is so closely divided. 53-49 or something like that? So does that mean you don't do impeachment because the trial may go one way or is likely to go one way? I don't think that's, that's a practical concern and a political judgment. So if you think the House should engage in the impeachment process against some of these judges, you need to let them know, because in the end, it's all politics, right? There's no law that says House can't impeach a judge for an activist decision. In fact, the Constitution, the framers specifically allowed for it and encouraged it to be used as a check. So call your House members and let them know what you think. Call your senators and let them know what you think. 202-225-3121. That's 202-225-3121. What do I think is going to happen in the end? I think a lot of these cases that restrain Trump are eventually going to fall flat. They're not going to be upheld at the appellate level or be significantly curtailed either by an appellate court or Supreme Court rulings. I think many of some of his biggest moves, like the Alien Enemies Act, I think ultimately he's going to prevail. His efforts to restrain and basically put an end to the constitutional abominations from his point of view of so-called independent agencies created by Congress that he supposedly can't hire and fire to the full extent necessary, and get Humphrey's executor overturned. What is Humphrey's executor? I should have done some more reading on it. But the first question you may have is, what is Humphrey's executor? That's a strange name for a case. I think it was Mr. Humphrey was someone who was fired. I think it was by FDR. And he died, but he had litigation. So his estate continued the litigation, and so the executor for Humphrey continued it. So the case became captioned Humphrey's executor. And the Supreme Court essentially found that these independent agencies that constrained the ability of the president to run them, or by essentially hiring and firing the members of the agencies, was constitutional. And President Trump said that's bunk, they're not constitutional, and there have been decisions since then that have undermined key aspects of Humphrey's executor. And so President Trump is taking action, asserting his constitutional authority. It's being challenged in the court, which is appropriate. And now the Supreme Court eventually is going to have to decide whether that's good law or not under the Constitution. And I think he's going to prevail there. But who knows, given Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett's hesitation to uphold presidential power. So my point is, we are in crisis now constitutionally. I'm hoping it settles down. And the danger in the meantime is that the courts will abuse their authority and undermine key government reforms in a way that can't be undone, right? You know, time's a wasting. This president has just 3 years remaining, 3.5 years remaining, practically speaking, right? So every month, every week, every day that he's constrained from reining in and protecting the republic is a day that can never be gotten back again. And the courts know that, who are doing this. The leftists know that, who are doing this. They're trying to gum up the works. I mean, what else would you expect them to do? So this is time we can't get back for self-government. So I think talking about impeachment is useful because it puts courts on notice that the public is upset about what they're doing, and hopefully they'll follow the law rather than politics. Hey, yeah, there's a guardrail of the Supreme Court. There's a guardrail of appellate review. There's also a guardrail of the constitutional check of impeachment. Okay? And hopefully the result is the judges will stay more carefully on the straight and narrow. Now I say that because, I don't know, maybe that's the triumph of hope over experience. But we've got the rule of law. We've got to follow it. And don't you believe Chief Justice Roberts that impeaching judges for activist decisions does not comport with the rule of law? He's plain wrong on it. In fact, it may be necessary. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.